May God, who has begun this good work in you, bring it to fulfillment.
Hi, thanks for joining us today on this Sunday for the Learn to Discern series. Today, after this brief introduction, you're going to be able to hear the homily that I preached today. And really, there were 2 points that I think are valuable in order for you to help understand your own path to discernment. And that is that in order to discern, we can't be overcome by the constant attack against the truth, which is the Holy Catholic Church, the truth of God proclaimed in the world today. Catholics are not well liked in this world today because of the truth we profess, the truth we proclaim. But one of the things we have to do is not get down on ourselves because the world doesn't believe in truth, the truth of God, but rather to ground ourselves in the commandments of God, to ground ourselves in understanding that to proclaim effectively the message of God, it's not a logical debate that's going to win, but rather be able to proclaim the truth in a merciful way that touches other people's woundedness, their sorrows, and their fears. In doing that, we can truly transform the world. So with that in mind, I now offer to you my homily from today's Mass.
I don't have many fears, but the fears that I mainly have, I would classify as being irrational fears. One of those sort of irrational fears, and I'm not sure I use that word completely the way it's supposed to be used, but I have an irrational fear of flying. And I label it that because anytime I am required to fly, I am just overcome with the emotion and the feeling of fear, even though logically I know it's completely safe. I remember getting on a plane one time, one of the very first times I flew, and my good friend Tim still laughs about this frequently because he and I were flying together, and the first thing I did was pulled out the emergency information card, and I read it from front to back, from back to front, upside down, right side up, flipped it around, read it 3 more times, trying to logically do away with my fear. And that's not really how irrational fears disappear. Because I don't overcome my irrational fear of flying by sitting down and reading statistics about how safe flying is. But rather, I overcome my fear of flying by touching that fear and sharing that fear with others, especially with those who will hear it and will understand it and will provide emotional comfort to me as I fly. And as we come to today's readings, they're beautiful readings. The first reading being that beautiful reading of, the commandments of God, God's law. And when we come to the gospel, the beautiful story of Jesus' human nature coming through and his passion to defend the house of God. And as it ends, he understood human nature well. But what really jumps out at me was the second reading we had. That idea that the Jews demanded signs and Greeks looked for wisdom, but we proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block in foolishness to those in the outside world. Today, we don't proclaim so much crucified that causes people to stumble and to fall, but rather we proclaim the 10 Commandments. We proclaim the fact that sin is real and forgiveness is needed. We proclaim that love is sacrificial. We proclaim that natural law is actually truth. These are the things that are stumbling blocks and foolishness to the world that we live in today. And so many people reject the Catholic Church, reject the Catholic Church's teachings, and reject individual Catholics today because they see us as being fools, or they see us as being a stumbling block to the fulfillment of human happiness. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes of watching the news to see how the truth of the Catholic Church is under attack. We see it at all levels of society, and it's sometimes very simple. It's as simple as attacking natural law. It's as simple as some of our institutions no longer choosing to use terminology like mother, father, brother, and sister, because they think that those terms are limited and those terms are exclude people from being accepted. In essence, you see a world that says that words we use to describe the family of God, God our Father, Saint Joseph our Father, Mary our Mother, a world that sees those words as being dangerous. It takes me back to the early Christians who had to figure out a way to convince people that Jesus Christ, the one crucified, died, and risen, is truly God. How they were able to overcome the stumbling block and the foolishness that the world looked at them. And I'm drawn to one other passage from John's Gospel as well. And it is that they will know the truth by our love. I started with that story about how I overcome my irrational fear of flying. It's really overcome by love, by other people helping me find courage to walk in the truth. As we go and we attack all of the lies and the misinformation that's in the world today, it's important that we realize that the people who follow these lies, the people who follow this untruthfulness that's being proclaimed in the world, they don't do it from a place of pure logic. They do it from a woundedness in their heart, a confusion about who they truly are and how they fit into God's great plan. My brothers and sisters, our call is to proclaim the truth of Jesus Christ, His laws, His church, His call to repentance, His beautiful divine mercy, which flows over us and heals us. But the only effective way to proclaim that message is to proclaim it by allowing the world to see our love, to speak the truth with charity, to love each person, to try to bring them into the family of God, not by beating them over the head with our books and our advanced learning, but to be able to come to the fullness of what our books teach us and what our learning calls us to love, and to allow each person to know they are the beloved of God. And we are here to walk with them and to love them and to journey with them through Christ, who is present here today, present in the church. And Christ brings His healing through the Word and through the sacraments. The world will know we are Christians by our love. The world will be healed of its own unbelief only through love. Let us proclaim Christ. Christ, the one who brings merciful love into the world, still it will be met as a stumbling block and foolishness. But to those who are truly afraid and hurting, it is our love that will bring them home to Christ, the divine healer.